Talk. We have a very special discussion about children and the spirit world. And an author who wrote the book, Heaven Talks to Children, Christine Duminiak, is here to talk us about the book. But first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
But this is actually fascinating. When this came across my desk, I thought, this says something, because when people are younger, they always seem to recount some sort of weird occurrence, some kind of connection, some kind of spiritual event, and then as they got older, nothing.
Right.
Why is it that children have this sort of connection?
I believe it's because it wasn't that long ago that they lived in heaven with God. They're still very innocent and pure, and almost as if there's no barrier between them and God in the spirit world. And it's so easy for them to pick up on things that we don't because of their innocence and their purity. I think that is really the key. For instance, adults have these filters. If they may see something, they'll kind of dismiss it. But children don't. They just blurt out what it is that they see, and they get really frustrated and exasperated if the person around them, the adults around them, aren't seeing the same thing that they're seeing.
Now, the book actually are accounts of different
right, there's
families,
over 100
accounts. People wrote to you, they sent things into you, and just said, what were some of the more fascinating stories?
Oh, one I love is called Bowling with Tony. And there was this little 2.5-year-old girl. Her cousin Tony died before she was born. She didn't know him at all. He was a terrific bowler, bowled a 300 game. And one day, and now this little girl had never gone bowling. One day her grandmother's watching her, and she sees a little girl rolling a rock down the street. And her grandmother says, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm bowling with Tony." And she said, "What?" She said, "Tony, I'm bowling with Tony. Don't you see him?" And this is the grandmother's son that she's talking about. So she said, "Where?" Hoping to get a glimpse of her own son.
Right.
He's right here. She pointed on the ground. He's right there. Don't you see him? And of course the grandmother, the mother, Tony's mother, didn't see him, but she had no doubt that her little granddaughter was seeing Tony and bowling with him.
Wow. Now, what is your background that you would have this kind of attraction to this kind of...
Something amazing really happened to me, because back in 1998, before I had my own spiritual experience, but before this, my eyes would glaze over when anyone would talk about these.
Well, and I'm sure there are a lot of people listening is thinking, weird, this is very strange, why does this happen? It's like, I can't go with that one.
Right, I couldn't relate to that. But then in 1998, my in-laws, who had been dead for a number of years, appeared to me in my bedroom one night, and they stayed for an hour. Changed my whole world. And to prove that I was not dreaming, I woke up my husband, and I said, "Wake up, your parents are here." And he said, "Where? And I said, "They're right there." Now, he could not see them, but that night I had the ability to see his parents in my room.
And he remembers that night when you woke him up.
Definitely.
He says, yes, she woke me up. She says,
right.
Because I've woken up thinking I was doing something, and then no one there to verify. It's like, did I? Oh, I'm not quite sure.
But they stayed for an hour.
They stayed for an hour.
So it's not like it just happened for an instant, and then you question yourself. They stayed for an hour.
Well, what do they do for an hour?
They just kind of, like, I was talking to them, but I couldn't hear them back, but they would kind of float in front of each other, and one minute they'd be at the foot of the bed, the next minute they'd be up at my face, and they just traveled like lightning so quickly.
Well, weren't you kind of a little scared?
I was at first, and I said, I had rosaries under my pillow, and I started saying the rosary, and the whole room changed to a blue with some white streaks of light, and a figure who kind of dressed like the Blessed Mother did in the days of Jesus was over my doorway just for an instant to say, "Everything is peaceful, everything is fine, you are protected." And then I was able to feel very peaceful about the whole experience.
So what did you talk to them about? And you said that you couldn't hear them
I couldn't hear them, but I just said, I would say, "I can't believe you're here. This is so exciting. Oh my gosh." And I don't know, I don't even remember what I was saying, but I was saying it in my mind, and I was giggling and laughing. I was like, just can't believe this is happening.
Did your husband stay awake for the whole thing? Did he
No, he stayed awake for maybe about 15 minutes, and I saw his lips moving very silently, talking to them in the direction of where I said they were standing. But then after a while he fell off to sleep. And after an hour, I was falling off to sleep, and I said, well, I'm sorry, guys, I'm so tired, I have to go back to sleep now. And I waved, and I said, thank you for coming, and they waved back. It was
wait a second, what, did they say why they showed up? Or?
No, but I felt that it had to do with my getting into the field of spiritual bereavement support, because this was the furthest thing from my mind. I was before I had my children, I was in the business world, and I was thinking about going back because they were reaching their teenage years, and I thought, well, I could help at home, and I could also go out and work. But this pointed me in a different direction, and I ended up getting into bereavement support, and I found that there were so many people dying to get a sign from their loved ones.
No fun there.
And it really touched my heart, so I founded a website called Prayer Wave for After Death Communication, where people could come and share their sacred experiences like I had, ask for a sign. We would pray for those people who wanted a sign, and that was back in the year 2000. We now have close to 600 members from 21 countries, and people just are getting signs, and I really think it has to do with the prayers. And I wrote a book after a few years, and I noticed there were about 20 common signs that people seem to typically have from their loved ones, like someone touching your head, and that's how my father comes by the way. My father will massage the top of my head when he's around, and a lot of people will feel someone touch them on the shoulder. Or they might, like your mother's perfume, you might all of a sudden have this strong scent of your mother's perfume around you. Or they may leave you coins. It's usually the same coin that they'll leave over and over again. Yes, like dimes or quarters or pennies. Yes, and they'll sort of like materialize out of nowhere. I have a friend who...
I could start looking for those around the house.
I wish they would leave $100 bills.
Can you leave a 50?
Yes, exactly.
You know, that might actually do some good then.
I'm with you on that. That's what adults were typically experiencing. But I noticed that children were experiencing a whole different type of a phenomena. They were actually seeing and hearing from spirits, which prompted the second book, Heaven Talks to Children. It's just devoted to children's experiences, because a lot of adults would love to see their loved ones again, and they talk about that a lot. But children see this quite often. It's very common for them. And the younger they are, the more common it is. I noticed as they got older, the number of stories were taping off. And I think that's because they start to realize that their peers aren't seeing the same things as they're getting older, and they get teased. And they don't want to be odd or different. And it all depends on how their parents are reacting to it too, and like their teachers, some teachers will get a little spooked by this.
But what about the power of suggestion? I mean, even though, like Bowling with Tony, the child didn't know this uncle, was it uncle, right?
Right.
But perhaps there is the power of suggestion that says that the child has heard parents talk about Tony, that he bowled a lot, that, you know, even in uterine, I mean, that they hear certain things, and they may not be able to express them verbally, you know, with the words and the language that we know, but perhaps there's a suggestion there that they are aware of that just gets planted in their brain.
Well, she was 2.5 years old, and she'd never been bowling. So they felt like she hadn't even seen bowling to even know what bowling was.
I see.
So that in their case, they felt like, how would this little girl know about bowling? She's never been bowling, never tried it, and never met her Uncle Tony, but yet she identified that's who she was bowling with.
Yeah. You know, there was another story that I read in here too. It talked about a young, I think it was, the boy's name was Tyler, that died.
One of my favorite stories.
Yes, explain that story.